While the industry seems to be burning all around us, there have also been a lot of recent success stories that I think show some interesting trends of where games are heading, as publisher money becomes scarcer and developers are forced to get scrappier to make their dream projects happen. The latest example is Mecca Chameleon, a new prop hunt game where you use your creativity and painting skills to try to blend in with a variety of environments. At the time of this writing, on June 22nd, the game has already sold over 5 million. Yeah, you heard that right. 5 million copies in just 10 days. Wait a minute, Dev has released a new update. Now it's at 7 million copies in under 2 weeks. It was also made in just 2 months, so it's a little rough around the edges, but people love it, and as always with games, fun triumphs over everything else. I've been seeing clips of it all over my Instagram feed over the last week or so, but surprisingly haven't seen much talk about it in the normal discussion spaces for the games industry. It's not the developer's first game, as they have a number of other games released on Steam over the last couple years that were received positively, but didn't sell very much. Polygon reports that solo developer Lemurion has also spent a number of years playing around with similar ideas on Fortnite, which follows a trend of a number of breakout games whose creators started in user-generated content engines like Roblox, UEFN, and others. Lethal Company is probably the most prominent one you've heard of, which has earned the developer over 100 million in revenue, which is just crazy inspiring to think about. Before making Lethal Company, Zeekers also released a number of games on Steam before finally finding their mega hit. These developers are a growing group of creators who have cut their teeth on finding audiences in these gaming markets that neither the press nor the general industry tend to really think much about. Creators like Lemurion and Zeekers spent years just making and releasing games on Roblox, itch.io, and Steam. They honed their craft, received more and more valuable feedback from players, grew their audiences, and then eventually landed on their first breakout hits. Mecca Chameleon isn't really a unique game on its own. There's tons of prop hunting games on Steam. But it took an already popular gameplay mode and built upon it by adding player creativity to the mix, allowing them to paint themselves to blend into the environment. It's really a stroke of genius because it's a mechanic built for organic viral moments of players doing hilariously creative things. Obviously, there's still luck involved. These games quickly became viral sensations because of how many influencers quickly picked them up and started sharing clips of them online. With an extremely reasonable price point, they're easy for people to quickly snatch up, jump in, and enjoy with their friends. For every viral hit you hear about though, there's hundreds of these types of games released every month, most going completely unnoticed by the masses. So it's not a fix-all solution for the industry. But even the games that don't become viral sensations in this friend slop, look, I know you don't like the term, so let's just call them what they are, party games, trend are still selling well and making the developers behind them hefty amounts of cash to invest in their studios and future projects. You probably had no idea that Yap Yap has sold 1 million copies. Urgulin Gnomes is estimated at around 300,000. Gamble with Your Friends, estimated at around 2.5 million just over a month. Pratfall in the ballpark of 300,000. Super Battle Golf at over 1 million. RV There Yet, 6 million. In my previous video about these party games, I mentioned how titles like Peak and Super Battle Golf straight up saved their studios from being closed altogether. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the industry right now, but there's a hell of a lot of games going under the radar in the mainstream press that people love and are making bucket loads of money that aren't focused on anything but being fun games at reasonable prices. You may look at these games as last-ditch effort projects or sloppily made games to cash in on the current trend, and in some cases they surely are, but they also show just how important it is for developers to get scrappy and get something shippable out the door in a reasonable amount of time. To be clear, I'm not saying that you shouldn't chase your dream project if you have the means to do so, but I do think a lot of studios and developers tend to get far too ambitious with their first projects. Something I see a lot of from games we're sent to check out on Steam that never find their audiences, and then we never hear from those developers again. I asked developers who follow me on social media about this and whether too many studios chase their dream projects first over focusing on building a sustainable business, and then making the dream game. Many agreed with that assessment, and most tied it to the amount of money that was exchanging hands during COVID, or developers coming from the AAA space and trying to replicate the same processes they had before. We talk about the business of games a lot here on Unpacked, And we're obviously seeing more and more discussion about the economics of making games online as the industry goes through wave after wave of layoffs and closures. I think about games like Highguard and what would have happened if Wildlight Entertainment had just released a much cheaper version of their game that focused on the core loop over anything else to make sure people understood and enjoyed it, instead of investing millions in 4 years of development into the game. Or how about 1047 Studios and the release of Splitgate 2? A high-profile failure that hasn't been covered much by the industry. The original Splitgate was a major hit for the small indie studio. People loved the game, and then the studio got overambitious with a $100 million investment and wanted to make Splitgate 2 into the next big AAA shooter. It took 5 years to develop that, and crashed almost immediately after launch. We're on the verge of Microsoft potentially closing Double Fine, a studio well known for making weird and out there games. A team that has shipped dozens of games and knows how to get a project out the door. So what is stopping them from spending 2 months to give their take on the friend slap genre or party genre, if you want to call it that? You might point to Kelm, but even that game was in some form of development for years, having been conceptualized all the way back in 2017, and undergoing a number of changes before landing on what was eventually released. I find it hard to believe a studio as talented as Double Fine couldn't pull off their own peak for Microsoft. We're seeing so many of these party games at the moment because the industry has been forced to go back to the drawing board. Money was flowing freely during COVID, and a hell of a lot of studios got deals to make their dream projects, and unfortunately for a lot of those studios, those projects came and went or never released at all. I think these party games are really showing the back-to-basics approach the larger games industry should be thinking about. The sales numbers speak for themselves. People aren't overly concerned about games having all the latest and greatest bells and whistles visually. With the tools developers have today, it's easy to make a good-looking game with a lot of particle effects. The harder part is making a fun game people want to play. And I think there's a lot the industry can learn, or I guess even relearn, from these releases and the people making them.